I think more and more people are living their lives within the confines of shrink wrap bubbles. And this is quite normal, I think, for most people, and normal to the human condition because it takes a village not to necessarily raise a child, but to be the protective area for an individual to exist without developing to another level, so to speak. It's really nice scenery out there. I may just turn the camera around, but I don't really have that option now. But I'll do it some other deal from now on, and we'll take some scenery that will put Prax scenery to shame because the scenery I drive through and walk through and travel through is way nicer than the scenery in northern Michigan where Prack is able to roll his wheelchair through and take footage of. So from now on, I'll probably be doing more scenery specific videos, and you won't have to look at my ugly brown face, my dear forons. So getting back to the subject of bubbles, this is part of the deal with me because I travel through 3 or 4 states. A variety of experiences, and it's a little different for me, because being a writer, or having been a writer, and still considering myself an artist of sorts, the artist formerly known as Dr. Greg, I feel that I have to subject myself to a certain number and degree of experiences with a certain variety of individuals. And since there's no one of my kind around, I can't just go to a powwow or just go to a specific area and try to interact with certain types of individuals. I have to interact with a variety of races and types and classes and so forth and so on, and I have that opportunity. And what I've noticed is that most people are ensconced in their own bubbles, and most people don't ever want to come out of their own bubbles, and that's great. Tourism is all about immersing oneself in a controlled environment that is simply different than the one you are more familiar with. Now, traveling in the old sense, that was different. You travel, you explore, you take notes. You live with the locals, you eat their food, you don't go to luxury hotels and so forth. You get dysentery and river sickness, or whatever you call it, malaria and so forth and so on. That's part of the overall experience of being a traveler. That's Francis Parkman and these individuals like that. David Livingstone, Stanley, Henry Morton Stanley, these guys. Sir Samuel Baker, I could go on and on. Travelers, the American continent, the Canadian, Russia, the Russian steppe, the African veld, the wastelands of the world. They traveled there. Perry, what was his name? The guy who went to the North Pole, Perry and Henson, his servant. These individuals were travelers in the sense of the word, is that they wanted to have the experience of having traveled and explored new territories that under very rough conditions and enduring privations and so forth and so on. The modern tourist, of course, just wants to travel for luxury. If women could enjoy the same luxuries they had on travel, closer to home, they would never travel. They would not want to travel. But, if you got to go to Tulum to enjoy certain amenities, then off to Tulum you will go. But women just have that whole experience of travel is a bubble to women already. If you go to Tulum, or it used to be Cancun, now it's Tulum, but you're in a bubble. You fly in an airplane surrounded by individuals who are a great deal like you, or like what you are used to or accustomed to, and then you get out in a luxury hotel area, with a area. This is a good area for you to be in. It's safe and secure and what have you, and there are no possibility of interacting with individuals who could, lead some kind of authentic life and are not there to in some way cater to you. So, once you understand that, there is no authentic traveling today, and that people basically live in bubbles of their own devising nowadays. That's the basis for understanding. People say, oh, I just don't want to. People don't really have to explain themselves in today's society unless they're in a particular class of people. So, satisfaction is obesity. And, obviously that, takes very little explaining, But then you go and you see Macrobius, for example. And yes, I use Macrobius again for my example, but this is a guy who gets out and goes to his local gas filling station and experiences some local color and thinks it's a big deal. He goes out and interacts with the guy at the fireworks stand and thinks he is really becoming a localist and so forth and so on, just because he got out of his computer room in which he stayed for 47 years. So there's a variety of experience, and there are levels to what constitutes leaving the bubble, and he's to be commended for leaving his bubble at all. It's great that he's getting out once in a while and walking, taking walks and stuff. That's awesome. And that's basically my point in the beginning. That's basically part of the human condition, is you'd rather stay in your village. The only draw for most individuals is the draw of the bigger village, and most people, that draw is diminishing all the time, because most people are staying at home with their parents now, because the draw of the bigger village was based on a different type of individual in a different type of world, in a world that is considerably more dangerous and in which there are more risks. People are more likely to stay home or live with their parents or live in their village and so forth and so on. So in the past 3-4 decades, since the 70s or whatever, 60s, whatever, risk mitigation has been intensified. And what that means is there has been a very low risk of anything bad happening to you if you leave your village and go to the big city. Yes, things can happen. Welcome to the jungle, all that's... Yeah, but for the most part, that was casualties were kind of like anomalies as well. Now, people focus and fixate on the anomalies, but the reality of the matter is they're still anomalies. So most people that went to the big city and went to college and so forth and so on led productive lives, and nothing bad happened to them. And yes, we fixate on women going to college and their body count and so forth and so on. Fact of the matter is, it worked out for most women. Up till now, everything is changing in the sense that risk is increasing. So the idea that life is a gamble, the gamble has become larger, that you're taking a larger gamble in leaving your hometown, leaving everything you know to go live in a big city, surrounded by people who don't look like you, and potentially marrying one of them, and just setting sail away from everything you know, including your blood and your genetics and your future, long term, for the sake of some short term printed Federal Reserve notes, some zogbucks. That, even though people can't articulate that much, it is the reality for them. That is the way their unconscious minds are looking at it. It doesn't mind or matter whether their mind can or they can articulate their trepidation about such issues. The fact of the matter is, that's what they're legit facing, and in the near future. So that is the problem that you're undergoing, and what you're going to have to deal with. So long and short of it is, people live in their bubbles, and I see this. I I go to a nice restaurant downtown where everyone is gay and, has these weird hairstyles and so on and so forth. They can only live that way because they live in a bubble, a temperature control bubble, no less. You can't wear the clothes modern people wear unless you live in a temperature control bubble. If you're not in a temperature control bubble, you can't get away with 99% of the things you do as a modern individual. You can't get away with your diet, you can't get away with your dress, you can't get away with your actions, you can't get away with your behavior, you can't get away with your health levels. You have to have your temperature control bubble in your pod. And this pod may be the whole of a downtown area, the whole of some municipalities that are, blessed by Satan, the whole of certain areas. Pratt has his little area. He's ensconced in his little bubble, where, this is where people start to feel safe. You've been in front of a computer so much that you start to feel, this is your home in this room. You spend enough hours at a particular task, be it playing video games or trolling the internet like Pratt and Mac to a certain extent, and you are unable to shift gears. And that's why I thought the AI picture of the human, not that I go along with that projection, because I think that's a projection that will manifest simply because people believe in it, not because it's real. And I'm referring to the projection of the ape that grows into a human through the theory of evolution in the AI mind, and then becomes this one with the computer. Basically, the human becomes one with the computer. It shows the evolution. There's a video on it. It shows the ape becoming a human and then evolving into a computer, a computer-shaped being. And I think this is definitely possible for people who believe in evolution. Do I believe it's possible if you don't believe in evolution? No, I don't think you're going to morph into a computer with attachments and so forth and so on if you're not a believer in evolution. So that's only going to happen to a limited number of people, but it's indeed possible for it to happen. So the AI forecast, while not real, it can be real. And, it's one of those things we get into with the whole manifesting demons and all that stuff. But long story short, this is why people live in bubbles. And, of course, everybody in the fora is specifically ensconced in the bubble for the most part. You have guys like Shernaut, who, I don't even remember who Shernaut was. Shernaut has never made an impression on me until he was on the show the other night. But the guy is just open to experience. That's just the way it is. But he's younger than most of these guys. And you have everybody else, and no disrespect, this is just the way it is. Everybody else is stuck in the proverbial mud or mire of their existence. And so what's interesting about this is it doesn't just go for the right. It goes for the left, as we talked about. Gays have to have their safe spaces to exist. If you deprive them of their safe spaces, then they can't exist. They'll stop existing. That doesn't mean they necessarily die, but they might just decide to stop being gay and dress like normal human beings and so forth and so on. We've created the environments for these freaks to exist in, and that was done, I think, on purpose specifically to do that. But on the other hand, the right has created environments for its individuals to thrive in, and both sides are not meant to accomplish anything whatsoever. So we don't see any vitality, any force, any fecundity, anything at all on either of these sides, because they're both stuck in their bubbles. And one of the quickest ways out of your bubbles is to do something that you ordinarily would not do. So in such a case, I would recommend that you hit the Cash App or hit the Venmo. I think I mainly have Cash App up, and send me a generous donation for basically enlightening you as to this problem that you didn't know you had, and giving you the antidote to the poison, which is flooding your life and your veins.